In the 10 years that I've been in the coaching industry, I have seen a lot of different conversations and discussions and maybe, let's say, arguments about what makes somebody a credible coach. And people have some different opinions, but today I want to analyze the two main camps that I see people talking about that they believe make somebody credible and why, in actual fact, neither of them do. And also give you the number one metric that you really should be looking at to qualify whether somebody is really a credible coach or not. And by credible, meaning that they're actually somebody who can literally help you. So stay tuned. This is coming right up. Welcome to She's the Business podcast. I am your host, Jessica Osborne. I'm a ex-corporate marketing girl and now business coach. For the last decade, I have been helping other women, coaches and service providers to position themselves as distinctly different in their market, in their niche, so that they're seen as somebody with authority, able to attract high quality clients. And ultimately, I help them to define and design their business in a way that enables them to work on their own terms in the hours that they want to work and have the lifestyle, the flexibility that they need for their ideal life. This podcast is made by women for women. I share with you a number of experts who bring their stories and strategies across mindset, business strategy, marketing, health, wealth, wellness, energetics, all the things that you need as the owner of your own business to truly succeed in this endeavor. This is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration. Okay, now back to today's episode. Yes, we're talking about the coaching industry and the discussions that seem to crop up around every 6 months or so. There'll be another onslaught of people calling out the coaching industry. Maybe some people will call it bashing the coaching industry. And if you happen to be a coach or be someone who's sort of similar to one and you've maybe even been afraid of calling yourself a coach for fear of what people will think and all this negativity that seems to perpetuate these outbursts that happen every 6 months or so, then, you'll know that there's a lot of opinions out there. There's a lot of people who have had some experiences that they share. And I felt like this is going to be a very valuable conversation to have because I see the pain that has been experienced. I've definitely seen and heard of many very undesirable situations that have happened. But also I wanted to draw some lines around why that's happened and what it means and what it doesn't mean. Whoops, we just had a momentary blip with my camera there. So if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, apologies for that slight break in the visual recording, but hopefully the audio didn't cut out for you. As you can see, I'm not in my normal office today. My parents are staying with me here, staying with us, our family, in our house for the week, and I've given my office to them for their bedroom. So I'm out here in the dining room doing my podcast recording from the dining room table. As you do, you flex, you make changes as you need to with this kind of business. So yes, let's look at what's happening. The coaching industry, the rants that people go on, let's call it the unhelpful discussion, I think that's sometimes happening. But the thing is that what I see, what I've read over the last decade, I've been sitting there on the sidelines, not taking part in these discussions, but just reading them, seeing what people are saying, hearing and understanding them. And there's a huge piece that is actually missing that I want to bring to you today because I think this makes it a very well-rounded kind of discussion, and there are definitely opinions on every side. However, I think you might agree today when I share with you the metric that really says whether somebody's credible or not. You cannot disagree with it. I don't believe it. So we'll see. Maybe you will. But let's talk about what's happening first of all. why are these discussions happening? Why does it pop up every 6 months that, the coaching industry and somebody's having a giant rant, and you seem to have then a spate of similar posts that happen. And what I find really curious is that, as you would know, there are a number of educational institutions around the world that create a quote coaching qualification. They've created one. They're an entrepreneur like you or I. One day they decided, I'm going to train people on how to be coaches. And so they created a course and they've given it a accreditation, and they then train people on how to be coaches. And at the end of it, you get a coaching accreditation. Now, there's a whole camp of people who not only run these businesses, but also have been through them, that talk about the coaching qualification as being the most important thing that you need to have. And of course they would, especially if it is the type of business that you run. You want people to think that, because that's really how you sell that qualification. And of course, what's happening is, as they are getting better and better at selling those qualifications, more people are going through those schools, those training programs. And then we're coming out every year with a whole bunch of newly qualified coaches who are now seeking to set up, start, and run businesses. And that's really what's creating this continual flow and influx of new people into the industry. And then we also have those who like to focus on the ones that aren't getting the accreditation, and, really calling out this lack of qualification, saying that means that they're not credible. However, as you may know, if you've been through any form of formal training, as I have, just having a university degree in something doesn't mean that you have mastered it. It doesn't mean that you're an expert in it. It means that you have knowledge and you've been tested on the knowledge and you've gained a pass grade and therefore been awarded your qualification. Now, I did a degree in business and in marketing. Back when I was 18, I started it. I actually decided to take a giant break from my degree, and I didn't complete it all in the one go within the 3 years, but most of my peers did that. They stayed at university, they got their degree. So by the age of 21, they're exiting out of university with a degree in marketing and zero practical experience. So they knew a lot about it. They have a qualification in it. Does that mean that they are qualified or credible as somebody to work in that field? Well, you're going to say, hang on, but you do need experience, because how are you going to apply that knowledge? How will you know what is the best way to apply the knowledge that you have? What's going to work, not work, all of those things. And once you start thinking about that, of course, that it takes a while for somebody to master the application of their knowledge in the form that therefore is successful and works. And that's why even with degrees, you start at the bottom of the ladder when you get a job, and you gradually work your way up as you gain more and more experience. The qualification is kind of like a tick box. Like, you can learn, you're obviously smart enough, you have knowledge, but it's only the application of that knowledge that turns you into somebody with expertise, i.e., who is an expert. And so what I find really curious about, these conversations that happen, that we see about the coaching industry and coaches without qualifications, is that they tend to come from the coaching institutes themselves, people who work within them, or people who have been through and have the qualification and are seeing that as that is the thing that you must have in order to be credible. But you could have somebody who's brand new with a qualification versus somebody who has 10, 20 years experience of working within that field and getting results. Which one do you feel like has more actual credibility? Would you rather go with somebody who's proven, who has results, or someone who's brand new but has a qualification? And I think as soon as you actually think about it for a moment, you're going to come down on the side of the fence. Well, probably go with the person who's proven, right? Who has they have the credibility. They've got the evidence that they do know what they're doing. It's not just a qualification, which says you have learnt something and you've passed a test. Well done. So That's the first camp, the camp of the qualification. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a qualification. As I said, I have a degree. I have always been somebody who focuses on learning and continual learning in my life. I've got a number of different qualifications that I've had throughout my life. Any new area that I'm going into, I have gone and got a certificate or done a course or a program and gained the knowledge. However, it's what you do with it next that really counts, right? So that is the first camp. The second camp of people that are often online, talking about the coaching industry and calling people out, the camp that discuss the coach's own results. So there'll be people on both sides of this fence. They're the people that say the coach has to have the results themselves. They've got to have a 7-figure business in order to be able to coach people who want a 7-figure business. And then there'll be the ones who say that's ridiculous. The coach doesn't need any experience of, or they don't need the results themselves in order to be a great coach. And I've looked at both sides of this argument and I can see the logic on both. They both make sense. When you think about it for a moment, when you look at sports, because I think that's always easy to imagine, the number one tennis player in the world has a coach. Often that coach has never been a number one tennis player in the world. They probably have been a good tennis player, as in they have learnt some skills, but they've never reached that level. Yet they are a great coach. And they are therefore credible and qualified to coach somebody who is at that level without having been there themselves. Nobody thinks that's strange. And you look at that across every sport. Look at that in swimming. Look at that in football, in netball, basketball, anything that people are doing. The coach doesn't necessarily, and often hasn't ever been at the level of the person who they're coaching. But that doesn't mean that they're not credible, right? So the same applies to other types of coaching. In business, in life, somebody can be a fantastic coach. They don't necessarily need to have achieved a certain level of revenue in their business to prove that they're a great coach. That doesn't actually prove anything. That proves that they have been able to implement a strategy in their own business. And this brings me to, I think, one of the biggest misconceptions that is out there right now, and something that a lot of there are a group of coaches that basically pin their entire marketing on their own results. But these are the ones who will show you how to do exactly what they did, as in, here's my method. And they're giving you something that they think you can pick up and insert into your own business and have the same result. But when you have been in this industry as long as I have, or longer, it's been a decade I've been watching this. And very rarely, I would have to say it's extremely unlikely you can pick up someone else's system, model, process, put it into your own business, and it works the same for you. It almost never happens. And so many people have been burnt by this that they get really frustrated. And then they go online and, they usually talk about some other reason as to why this hasn't worked. And they tend to, really lose trust with the coaching industry as a whole. But this is not how a lot of people run their programs. It's just one type of person, because that's the experience that they have. That may be the only experience that they have. So they're leveraging it in a way to sell it. Now, that's not everybody. That's not how most people do it. So there's nothing wrong with it. And there can be times where somebody has a really great process that actually can be, for the most part, let's say, modeled into your own business. But where they're really going to come into their own, where they're going to find the success factor, is where they show people how they created it and how to modify it to suit their own situation. I'm a really firm, I'm not going to say believer, but I know that there are no two people the same. Therefore, there are no two businesses exactly the same. Picking up somebody else's thing and literally trying to be the same person with the same process, the same model, is just, it is such a hard ask, and it does not work. It really very rarely produces positive results. It may produce a result, especially if you've got zero. Yeah, it will get you a few steps down the track. But you're going to then find this isn't exactly what I need. It's not working for me. It's not working for my ideal clients. There's so many aspects of it that would need to be adjusted and different. So the mark of a great coach who is teaching something like that, a process that they've used themselves, is that they have mastered it in the way that they understand how they built it. It didn't just happen by accident or by surprise, like, oh, I've had a reel go viral. Now I'm going to teach people how to have viral reels, and they actually can't replicate it, because if they didn't know what goes into it, then you can't teach someone else how to create it, right? So one of the things that you can look for is this something that's happened by accident, or have they been able to replicate it again and again? If they've been able to replicate it, they're going to understand what the ingredients are that they used. And therefore, the next phase is, can they then transfer that information, that understanding, that knowledge to somebody else, adapt it for the other person's, yours if it's you, adapt it for your situation, and have you therefore achieve a similar result? Now, that's a whole nother test that a lot of coaches who have not done before they've started selling their solution, right? Which brings me to, I'm kind of beating around it at the moment, but here is the one that people don't talk about, which like always really bamboozles me, surprises me, why nobody is talking about it. It is basically the only sure way of knowing whether a coach is credible, whether they're going to be able to get you the results, is if they have proof of client results. If they have been able to get results for their clients, that shows, and be able to do it multiple times, obviously, not just once, because that could be a fluke, but if they've been able to produce great results for their clients time and time again, then you know that, okay, this is somebody who not only has the knowledge, they've not only mastered it to the degree that they need to in order to be able to teach it to somebody, but they are also really adept at transferring that knowledge to somebody else, helping them apply it and getting great results. So it shows not only, that they're able to understand it, they have the knowledge, the expertise themselves, but it's the transference of it. It's the ability to be able to have somebody take the right steps forward and achieve the results that makes somebody a great coach. Now, I know that you might be listening thinking, but that means you're a teacher and teaching is different to coaching. Yes, 100% agree. Teaching is different to coaching, but I think a great coach has a mixture of both. They not only teach you what you need to know, they fill the gap of knowledge that's currently missing, but then they're also helping you to apply that knowledge by coaching you through, helping you see what's in your way, helping you navigate the obstacles, see what's in your blind spot, remove the barriers that are blocking you. And if they are really great, they're not going to be telling you what to do. They're going to be guiding your decisions, your questions, and your answers and solutions. And that's why I say it's really important that they haven't just got results for themselves, that they have had results for other people. Now, some coaches may have had much better results for other people than they've ever had for themselves. Great. That really doesn't matter, does it? Because you're not them. So even if they haven't had great results in their own business, but they're able to get great results for other people, then you know that you're going to be one of those other people, right? It's the same with your clients and same with you. If you're feeling like, well, I'm not credible enough because I haven't got to X stage in my own business, like that really doesn't and shouldn't matter to somebody. What should matter is what results have you been able to help other people get? That is the mark of a fantastic coach. Now, let's talk for a minute about teaching versus coaching, because, that's a whole nother chat that comes up, isn't it? Another argument. There are some people out there that form the opinion that a coach doesn't need to have any knowledge or expertise in an area. If they're a great coach, they can coach somebody through. And I disagree with that on many levels. Firstly, I would never go out there and decide I'm going to coach people on how to play basketball, having never played it myself. I know a little bit about the game. I've watched it, on occasion, but I don't know anything in terms of the strategies, the tactics, the fine tuning of the technique and the skills. I would never even assume that I could go and coach somebody because I know coaching techniques. That is fairly ridiculous. I think this is something that comes out of a lot of these coaching institutes, because they're trying to make their students feel like it doesn't matter, you can do anything that you want to do. You don't have to be the number one expert in the world to be able to coach someone through. And absolutely, you don't need to, but you do need to have expertise. You shouldn't be coaching someone on something that you have no expertise in yourself. If you don't have the expertise, go and get it and then coach people through it. So you can get expertise in the subject matter area by learning it, by doing it yourself. They're the two things. You're going to gain the knowledge and then you're going to apply the knowledge and gain the experience of actually doing it. Because as you would know, reading a book on riding a bike is totally different to the feeling of riding a bike. So you kind of need to do both. Maybe you never read a book on it. You don't need to once you've felt it. But the most important part of it is the actual doing of it. That's the only way you're going to be able to truly be able to coach somebody on how to ride it. And it's a great example because you can't ride a bike for someone. You can't literally do it for them. You give them a bike, you can transfer knowledge, you can transfer the information, but it's when they're on the bike and they're experiencing it. If you've been able to experience it yourself, you're going to be far more skilled and have the tools necessary to help somebody through the struggles that they're having and be able to pinpoint it really quickly, because you're going to look at them straight away and say, well, I can see that you're having trouble with your balance, or you're having trouble with where your weight is being distributed on the bike is making it harder for you. There are basic things that you would be able to see because you understand what it feels like when you ride a bike, having ridden one yourself. So I hope that analogy is making sense for you, and that we're understanding the difference between teaching and coaching, and we're understanding the difference of credibility. And now the qualification, that is a much lower form of credibility than client results. Your own results are a much lower form of credibility than client results. Therefore, the one that we really should be talking about the most, the one that we should be focused on, the one that we should be not only trying to get more of, but also be sharing more about are client results. The results that you've been able to get for your clients. That is the proof that you're good at what you do. Qualifications don't mean anything if you are actually terrible at coaching people. If you cannot transfer that information to someone else, have them understand it, be able to apply it in the right way, then it doesn't matter how many qualifications you have. It's the application of it that really, really counts. And I hope that's been useful for you. I hope that this has maybe thrown some new perspectives into this discussion. I hope now when you see the next post where it's, they're talking about people who must have a qualification or people who must have the results themselves, you can sit there and think, yeah, well, neither of them are as important as the results they have for clients. And that you should definitely be weighting your decisions based on the client results first over anything else, and you'll obviously have your own opinion as to how important it is that they have a qualification or that they have a certain specific result in their own business. And, I'd have to say, personally, I've worked with many different coaches, and the number one thing that I have found is the results they've had in their own business have had zero impact on me and my business. The various methods that they use, whether they've been qualified in them or not, has not mattered. It's whether they understand how to use them and they're adept at using them, as in they have experience and expertise. Amazing. You can tell when somebody has a lot of experience in it because of the way that they deliver it, the experience that you gain by being in that container with them. And you will know, if you've, like me, and you've been in those places, you will understand and be able to recognize what that is. And I hope as well, having listened this far and been in this conversation, that if you have had one of those experiences that haven't been ideal, that now you maybe you're able to see what it was that you got blindsided by with the marketing, what took your focus away from the thing that really mattered, and whether you're therefore able to see what it was that does matter for your future decisions. And thank you for tuning in. I'll be back again next week with another episode of She's the Business Podcast. If you have a moment, please give a rating below, drop down and tick the 5 stars, put that through. I would so appreciate that, as it helps other people to find this podcast and obviously gain more insights and knowledge for their own selves.